All right, guys, 2020 Natties. I'm here to talk about it, here to give kind of my 2 cents, my review. I wanted to make, usually I make a little post after a tour stop or a big tournament, but we did so bad that I didn't feel like it. And yeah, we didn't feel like taking a picture, we didn't feel like anything. So, but I have a lot to say, so I wanted to get on here and kind of talk about not what the whole 2020 season meant to me, but just kind of leading up to this tournament with a little bit of context, because I think it's easy to see, okay, so-and-so beat so-and-so, and so-and-so beat so-and-so, so that's how the tournament went. But there's always more to it, especially in a sport where you can't easily just look up all the stats. You can't easily, you can see who everyone played in pool play, but it takes a while. People don't usually do that. So I'm just going to break it down a little bit. First of all, I'll say that I'm grateful for Taylor Sanford for putting it on, for the community kind of rallying together and making something out of nothing. Cathedral did an amazing job. They put out a ton of new gear, and if nothing else, I went home with a lot of new gear. So, can't be too upset. This is one of them. On the throne with the sweet mantra on the back. I really like this shirt. It's soft as a baby seal. So yeah, this season obviously has been weird. It's been kind of this amalgamation of a bunch of indie tournaments, a bunch of young up-and-comers grinding and working on their game. It's been kind of the year of the reverse cut. It's been the year of boisterous, kind of being the next great team, the next the next dynasty. Not to say that CS is done or retired. They've just been kind of more in the shadows this year. And it'll be interesting to look back on the 2020 season after a few years and see how it's received historically. But at the end of the day, you can't take away anything from people that are winning tournaments. You can say their competition's lower or the circumstances are different or blah, 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 blah. But ultimately, winners are going to win. And sometimes they have an easier road, sometimes they have a harder road. But I don't think you can take anything away from them just because it's been a weird season. For myself, for me and Stokes, we did, we were lucky to live in Utah, so we played in a ton of tournaments, but the only tournaments where we really had outside premier or pro players were the couple Spike House tournaments where we got some bad draws and didn't play our best ball. And ultimately at the pro level, you just have to play your best ball all day or you'll just get wrecked. And so the one Spike House tournament, we saw Preston and Ryder in the quarters. And that was the first time me or Stokes had ever seen a reverse cut in any capacity. So Ryder smoked us. And we didn't do terrible. We got the third seed, and we played Ryder and Preston in the quarters. So kind of a bad draw. And then we played, in the other Spike House tournament, we played Mammal in the semis. Had a good win over Echo in 2 games in the quarters. And we lost in two really close games. I thought there were some questionable calls, but that's kind of the nature of the game, so don't want that to be the excuse. But and Stokes threw up late in game 2, so just kind of some bad circumstances. And then our third, fourth place game against Ryder and Coleman, Stokes was dead. He was out of it, and at that point, it's not that we didn't care, but it's just, especially because it wasn't a tour stop, the stakes weren't super high. Playing for third and fourth when you're already gassed, you're already in a bad headspace, can be a tough game. But again, that doesn't take anything away from Ryder and Coleman. They played really well. So yeah, we had a couple tough tournaments where we didn't perform super well. And then, we had a bunch of, besides those two, every local Utah tournament we played together, we won. And then we mashed up a bunch. I won some, he won some, just playing with younger guys, less experienced guys. And yeah, all in all, it was fun. It was great that we got to play so many. I think I've played in 16 tournaments this year, which is probably more than a lot of people, thanks to Sanford. But then coming into Natties, the main issue was we didn't really play much beforehand, which I know a lot of people don't practice as much as other people, but we usually do. We usually play 2 or 3 times a week. And then I got COVID and was basically clear to play a few days before Natties. So I went out and played pickup a few days before and didn't even go that hard, but because I hadn't really been active for a couple weeks, completely destroyed my shoulder. Not my shoulder, more like just right here. I was unbelievably sore, like I'd never been before. And I think it's partly because COVID just kind of takes it out of you. Like, to me, I never got super sick, but I was just pretty fatigued and tired and a little achy. And I think, oh man, it just wrecked my arm. And so Friday and Saturday at Natties, I still felt confident. It wasn't so bad. I could fight through the pain. But the difference between a fresh arm and a beat arm. And, with Natties going into the pro division, you got to have all your arrows in your quiver or you're in a dark spot. So that was a little bit of a bummer for me. Again, not an excuse, not a viable excuse. It's just a factor, I guess. And then I also think because my arm was in a bad spot and because I was a little fatigued, the whole 2-day tournament thing wasn't great for me. And I'm sure there's other people it wasn't great for, but I kind of gave it my all Friday night and didn't have much left in the tank on Saturday. But the thing is, in spike ball, like, you're really not doing a tremendous amount of running and crazy physical exertion, but it's like my shoulder and arm were just beat. And normally I would have been fine. Play pickup a few days before and then go play 2 hard days, I would have been fine. But I think I was just a little trashed from the frickin' corona. So, but I didn't feel that trashed. I just felt like my arm was kind of made of lead. But the rest of me felt okay. But going back and kind of reviewing those series, I just wasn't my normal self. I felt like I played pretty well, made some uncharacteristic mistakes, but I felt like I played okay. But I think ultimately I was a little gassed from the vid. With that being said, we went in Friday night and also got what I think was the hardest pool. Even though we technically had the second most points behind Boisterous, meaning we should have had the second easiest pool. But there was no really objective, fair way to do it because all these great players didn't have SRA points from 2019, or they barely did, like Raul, Grant Laughlin, Ryder, Gabe and Ravi. Ravi had some, but for the most part, besides Boisterous, these top teams had almost no points, and so the pools were wonky. So it was a little frustrating, but I was like, all right, we got two of the, in my mind, Gabe and Ravi and Grant and Ryder were, besides Boisterous, the teams to beat. And it turned out that was exactly who were the teams to beat. But so we first played the Ohio guys. I feel bad. I forgot. I should have written it down, but I can't remember their names or their team name. They were like the Teeny Weenies, or I think that was it. Teeny Weenies or Tiny Tweenies, something like that. They had a big left-handed kid, and they gave us kind of a dogfight. The first game we won pretty handily. I think 21-16. And then game 2, big old Southpaw whipped out some nasty lefty reverses, which, again, not an excuse, although you could probably go through this video and count my many, many, many excuses. But big lefty with his reverse, we've never, ever seen a lefty reverse. I guess we have a kid, Caleb, on Swervin that has a little reverse. But he's also like 5'5", and so it's a very different type of reverse. This guy's like 6'5", 6'6", and he's got a cannon of an arm. So he got us on a few, and it was just kind of too late to recover, and we lost at cap. So we lost 24-25, which was upsetting. But I was like, fine, we got aced a few times. We're used to it now. And honestly, I think game 1, he tried reverse a few times and just didn't land any. And then he just started landing them, which is kind of the name of the game. Land your big serves, right? And then, so we won that series. So we won game 3. I think it was 21-18, maybe 21-19. And then, we were hoping to, for point diff and everything, we were hoping to get that series done in 2 games. But instead, we went into deep pool extras, which is to 25. And then we had Gabe and Ravi, which, if you've been paying attention, Gabe is hot right now. Him and Max took down Caleb Heck and Addison Powers. They beat, who else did they beat? They beat Anchored. And for all intents and purposes, Gabe is an advanced player. I mean, just by, technically speaking. Of course, he qualified for the Utah Premier and is definitely a Premier level player, pro level player, but just came out of the woodwork. Obviously, the guys in the East know more about him, know more about his game and his development, but to me, I had never even heard his name until I saw that video of him and Max decimating fools. And so, not a great not a person I really wanted to see in pool play, to be honest. But and Ravi is one of those kind of old school cats that I had never played for some reason. Just luck of the draw. I think he historically has just played mostly East Coast tour stops, and I've only done a couple of those. But so we played them, and we played in game 1, I think, our best ball of Natties. We served well. We received really well. We received Gabe suspiciously well. I think in game one he had one ace, and he wasn't double faulting a ton. He double faulted a couple times, but he was landing his serves, and we were getting them, and we were containing Ravi and his Fuego and his drops, and got a couple of defensive ups, and I think we won 21-18. And then game two we lost a very close game. I can't remember the score. I want to say it was like 19-21. I could be wrong, but that's what I think it was. It was very close. And it was one of those games where there's a couple lead changes and just who can snag an ace, right? And then game three was also some of our best ball of the tournament, except for like one or two mistakes. And then that cost us the game, right? So we ended up losing again at cap. We lost 24-25. And it was really a really fun game, honestly. My favorite series of the tournament, even though we lost. Also, I had like shaken Robbie's hand once or twice, but never really met those guys. They were they're just a fun team to play. Some teams, even though they're good guys, they just suck to play. They're not, I don't know. I don't know what to say. Just some teams are fun to play and some aren't, even if they're good guys and you like them when you're done playing roundnet. These guys I really enjoyed playing. And gosh, that sucked. It was, we had kind of the crowd behind us. We were on the feature court. We had the lights. We're deep in extras. If we win that series, it changes our seating altogether. And it changes our morale and our headspace going into our last series. And so that kind of sucked, but hats off to Gabe and Ravi. They played amazing. And we made one or two mistakes. And you can't do it. You can't make mistakes in roundnet. That's the bottom line. You can, if you have an elite serve, you can handle a couple of mistakes, a couple serve receive mistakes. But at that top level, you cannot make mistakes. It's a game of perfection. If you've ever seen Friday Night Lights, the coach in the beginning of the movie, he's talking to his players, or maybe it's not the beginning, but he's talking to his players before a big game, and he says, "Can we be perfect? Can we be perfect?" And that's how I feel before a big roundnet match. Can we be perfect and hopefully get some aces? That's the name of the game, for better or worse. And then so we went to our third series against Grant and Ryder. Also not a team you want to see in pool play, especially in a series. So we'd already played 6 whole games. And gosh, honestly, that series I don't even remember as well. So we went 3 games. I think we won game 2, if I'm correct. Forced it to game 3, and then both games we lost were either 18 or 19, I believe. But yeah, again, against them, I felt like we played well. Didn't really have any crucial mistakes, but Grant hit just some absolutely absurd serves. He hit some of the best reverses I've ever seen. I thought they were harder to receive than Ryder's or Gabe's. Just because he hits the ball so freaking hard. And Ryder got us on a couple cuts, and that's all it was. I felt like we played very clean. We got a couple defensive ups. I was landing more drops than I usually do. You know, we just got out-aced. That's what it was. And if it was a normal, one pool game, you don't care so much. But in these series, you just hate to see two powerhouses that early. So that was our night. It was kind of a disappointment, but I was like, you know what, we can recover from this. All our games were close, so we won't have the worst seed. It won't be great, but it won't be the worst for going 1 and 2. And so we ended up snagging the 11th seed, which meant we would play the 6th seed, which was Michael Sue and Buddy Hammond. And so I felt confident with that. I felt like we had a decent road based on our seed. So we would see them in the round of 16. And then if we won, we would have played Raul and Dan, which I really wanted to play because I've never played either of them. I played Raul and pickup literally once. We played one game when I was in Texas for Christmas. But I love playing top players that I've never played before. It's a really fun part of the sport. But yeah, so we, again, I'm gonna give a couple excuses, but I don't believe in excuses. they're what I tell myself to make myself feel a little bit better, but ultimately they're not valid. Okay. So that night I went home. I'm a terrible sleeper as it is. I'm just not good at falling asleep quick, struggle with insomnia. But it's bad when I got something I'm hyped for the next day or nervous about. And it's not really nerves. It's more anxiety. It's more like, let's freaking get this going. I almost don't want to go to bed. I just want to play. So I get in bed at about 1. Could not fall asleep to save my life. I tried everything. I tried reading, tried watching some shows, tried just putting on some music, tried just laying there in silence. I didn't fall asleep till about 6:30. So that was not ideal. So I wake up not well rested, drive to Draper, and my arm is trashed. My arm and shoulder are trashed. And if anything, this taught me I need a better left. Because, if you're in Utah, if you play me pickup enough, you know that I have a left and can land it sometimes, but it's just not at that pro level. I don't trust it enough to really whip it out. And, I'll get an ace here and there. I'll whip it out here and there, but mostly it's just easier to go back to what I know and trust, which is old righty-tighty. So yeah, my arm was gassed, and but I felt good with our road. Maybe a little too good, maybe a little too comfortable. I've played Michael Sue. I think just played him in pool play once when he was playing with Solomon, and me and Stokes decimated him, for lack of a better word. Then I played him and Allie Foster in a friendly tournament, and I was playing with Jess Ellingford, and we won in 2 games in the finals. So yeah, I was comfy, very comfy against him. Buddy I'd never played. Obviously I knew he was a defensive beast. He's suspiciously good at serve receive, even though he just doesn't play very much anymore. And I know he doesn't really have a cut. So I was like, I didn't go in thinking, oh, this will be a cakewalk, but I went in thinking, okay, let's go take care of business and win in 2. I don't think we're going to kill them, but let's go take care of business. And ultimately, we just played bad. Again, a couple uncharacteristic hits. Like, of course, Buddy is always in the right spot. He plays really smart defense. It's not just that he's athletic, it's that he's really smart. Great footwork, great hands, great position. But most of those ups he got were because A, we got a not great set, and B, we got a not great hit, which is not us. Our bread and butter is kind of good setting, good hitting. We're not maybe the strongest serving team in the world. We'll get our aces here and there, but we kind of make our living off of being a clean team, and we just were not clean. And Michael had a couple aces. Buddy had one or two, which, I think if we're dialed in, they shouldn't get, they should get one or two aces, not 4 or 5 aces. And yeah, it was a little windy, so we had a couple bad first touches, and so our recovery sets didn't quite make it, and just boom, boom like that, we lost in 2 games. I think both games were, it was 19-21, 17, 18-21, and yeah, that was it. That's our season. So that was extremely disappointing, and I don't want to take anything away from Michael and Buddy because they're both amazing guys and amazing players, and Michael's improved a ton, and Buddy is just a legend, right? But I was still just very disappointed. And you can blame the loaded pools, you can blame me having the coronavirus a little too close to the tournament, you can blame the wind, the 2-day tournament, my sore shoulder, whatever. But ultimately, we just didn't bring it. But I felt like I gave it my all. So I don't have regrets. You hate to look at games that you feel like you should have won, and you feel like you are the superior team, and you lose anyway. That's when it really hurts, especially when there's expectations. I don't really care about other people's expectations. I don't really care about rankings. Of course, they make you feel good, but I care about my expectations, our expectations, and we just underperformed. So I was really hurt, honestly, and I shouldn't put so much value in wins over losses, but I do. I should not correlate winning with self-worth, but I do. And so it's crazy in those dark moments. You almost feel like just being done with roundnet. You almost feel like, okay, well, I obviously am now the best server here. I obviously have gotten ace too many times. I might be one of the better finishers, but what does that matter? So yeah, maybe this has run its course. But that's the darkness talking. And I don't judge anyone from walking away from the sport, because it's a tricky thing to figure out how obsessed and how dedicated, how committed you want to be to a sport like this that is new, that's ever changing, that rewards its top players minimally, and I don't think that's anyone's fault. I think that's just the nature of the position the sport is in right now. But it's hard. It's hard to travel that much and be on top of the meta all the time and train for tournaments where the only spectators are other players and maybe some family members. It's tough, but that's why I decided to stay at the tournament and not just go home, even though I wanted to just leave. I wanted to not really talk to anybody because I knew everyone was going to come up and ask, oh, what happened, or how'd you guys do? And I would just have to relive it 50 times. But I had to take a step back and realize and remember in a holistic way, what does roundnet give me and what does it do for me? Because of course I'm very competitive and just want to win, because winning feels great. But that's not all the sport's about. It's about the community. It's about me coaching younger teams. It's about me supporting other local teams. It's about the friendships. It's about, my mom and dad and sister and niece and brother-in-law came. It's about that support, that love. It's about just the culture, right? The culture that has been changed from things Sanford's doing, that's been changed by what Cathedral's doing, that's been changed by kind of external factors from the weirdness of 2020. It's about the beauty of the game. It's about the poetry of a match and of coming from behind and winning. And even though I hate that we lost to Michael and Buddy, it was beautiful to see them shine, because they've worked hard. And, anytime there's an upset in sports, it's beautiful. It just is. And so it was a tough day for me, and it probably sounds extremely histrionic, but I even texted my buddy Justin, the Cathedral dude, after, and we were talking, and he said, it sounds corny, but it's the joy of winning and the agony of defeat. That's what makes sports great. And I was like, you're right, And part of like I was saying, like in roundnet, it feels like you have to play perfect. It also feels like you can't, like in roundnet, like you can't lose to teams that you're better than. Like you can't do that. It's it's unheard of. But I kind of like the model of roundnet being more like tennis, where you have your top players that should win and win the majority of the majors and the big tournaments, but there's always guys that'll get upset, and there's always some girl that'll come along and beat Serena Williams, even though she's the GOAT, right? That's how sports should be. But it's kind of, we're still so early in the game. It's like, people wonder why Bill Russell won 11 championships and 9 in a row. It's like there were 8 teams, and so you look at Chico's run and CS's run and maybe Boisterous's run, and I don't think the game will be that dominant in 10 years as far as who's going to win a tournament, and they're going to win 90% of the tournaments they play in. And I might be wrong. All sports have their dynasties, but it's an exciting time to be part of the sport, and I'm glad that I'm not walking away just because I had the worst tournament of my life. And I only had the worst tournament of my life technically and statistically, because we got T13th, which is terrible. But, I've had 1 or 2 other tournaments where we got out in the round of 16, and some we just didn't play out, and so you get T9 or whatever. And some we've played out and have won our other series, and this one we just didn't feel like playing out. I would have played out if it was an SRA tournament and we needed the points for pro or elite or something, right? But I just didn't feel like we had anything to play for, and I don't think Stokes really wanted to play. And so we're like, this is a big, big loss for us. So, we got nothing to gain by going and fighting for ninth. But I've done it before. I've fought for ninth, and I've been happy to get it in the past. So, hats off to the teams that did play out. But ultimately, it was a very humbling experience, and I walked away. The main things I'm walking away with are I've got to get better as a player, and I can't be satisfied with any aspect of my game. It's like, if I think I'm a good setter, okay, but my sets have to be even better. My hits have to be even better, even smarter. My serve receive is good, but it needs to be great. It needs to be great all day long. And I need to learn how to adjust to great servers quicker. And I need to implement tougher serves into my arsenal. So, got a long road ahead. Excited for 2021. We got a couple more local tournaments in Utah before, just to round out the year. We're doing a King of the Court and another tournament in St. George where it's a little warmer. So yeah, I'm excited. Ultimately, I was very, very upset with our outing, but frick, it's one tournament, It's one tournament, and I think what a lot of other teams have, a lot of top 10 teams have that we don't have, is kind of a wild pedigree, like you take an anchored LI, and they've had some disappointing losses, some early exits, but they've won a few regionals, and they've won a handful of tour stops, and they beat CS twice. They just have a lot under their belt, and so their big losses, I'm sure they're just as disappointing in the moment, but I think historically and within the community, they're not viewed so badly, whereas me and Stokes are still relatively new to the competitive, pro scene, really. I qualified for pro in 2018 with Spencer, but we made it by the skin of our teeth and really weren't very good. We were just out for blood and we're playing hard. And in 2019, we played basically the second half of the season and got 3 podiums, which was great, but and qualified for elite, which was great, but really we're, compared to a lot of these OG teams, we just don't have a lot on our spike ball resume. So yeah, those are my thoughts on Natties. Listen, you gotta twist whatever happens to you into a positive thing, or else you're just gonna be needlessly depressed. So I'm excited that we have some potential rule changes or modifications to the equipment coming up. It sounds like hoping we have a normal 2021 season. But there's always things to be excited about. Cathedral's always coming out with fresh gear. Spike Ball's doing their team up with Lululemon. I'm sure as things calm down and the coronavirus is kind of squelched, Worlds will be back on the table, and there's just a lot of things to be excited about. And there's no point in harping on a bunch of old losses you took. Big deal. Move on, get better. So those are my 2 cents. I appreciate everyone that came up and talked to me at Natties, even though I was probably a little grumpier than I should have been. But I appreciate the camaraderie and the brotherhood and the familial environment that is fostered by this community. It's beautiful. So shout out to everyone that came, everyone that watched the stream. It was awesome. Okay, appreciate you guys.